Hey there, everyone. Welcome back.
Hi.
Happy Thursday. Welcome back to GovCon Hacks, where we give you actionable tips to help you accelerate business growth in the government contracting space. My name is Ashley Dool,
And I am Natasha Velez.
and we are usually here Thursdays streaming at 7 p.m. Eastern. So if you are new with us, you can support us, like, subscribe, tap the bell for notifications, share with someone who this episode might be helpful. We are going to talk about grants today. There's been some pivots, there have been some trends that we're noticing changing. So, as always, we want to bring that information front and center to you, our audience. So, feel free to drop your comments and questions into the chat as we go along. We will be sure to answer them immediately following the episode. And thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
Any updates you want to share, Natasha, before we dive in?
Well, we're in a government shutdown.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody knows that, but we're in a government shutdown. But I am okay, so the world is going to shit. But I will say this. Grants are suddenly becoming a thing that are coming onto my pipeline. And I've never really had to focus on it very much.
Yeah, me either.
And I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't very experienced in the grant world. I had to research a little bit. But I think with all the changes, and I guess it makes sense, with all the changes happening in the agencies, a lot of the money is trickling down to the state. And I am seeing this massive evolution of like what used to be a contract is now a giant grant. And that grant is now going in as a grant to the state and then sub grants to companies that want to bid for a piece of that pie.
You're getting right into like segment 3.
Yeah.
Intro. Hold on. We haven't gotten yet. We did an episode recently, and we kind of started noticing the shift. Innovation's real big. We did an episode recently on OTAs, so I encourage you to go check that out. But we're noticing the shift on how the agencies are spending. It's really less on traditional contracts and more on non-traditional mechanisms like the OTAs, cooperative agreements, and grants. So, and I think the why is important here too. Like, why? Why is the government all of a sudden now wanting to put what used to be a contract under a grant?
Because it's
Agility.
faster.
Yep, agility, innovation, less bureaucracy.
It takes longer than a contract. I think we all know that. It takes too long sometimes, especially if you're trying to get tech or change or transformation. So, yeah, we're seeing this change and it's kind of exciting.
And what's also exciting about it for me is that these alternative funding mechanisms create opportunities that didn't used to exist for your non-traditional contractors.
Right.
So, what contracting considers as a pass-through, maybe not such a terribly ruled out thing. And we're going to talk about the rules and regulations and how those are different between contracts and grants and all of that. But I think the why is important here. There may be less solicitations that small businesses can bid on the street right now at the federal level. They're pretty massively bundled. You may see lesser in quantity than you saw in years prior. But that's not to say that the money's not getting spent. So this is us helping you follow the money. You can use usaspending.gov to identify both contracts, grants, IDVs, assistance awards, loans. So that's all publicly available information as part of the Freedom of Information Act. If you don't use it, shame on you. So we're going to get into our first segment, which is what makes grants different. And this is in part going to be a little dry when we talk about regulations, but it's important to know. Grants are more assistance instruments rather than acquisition tools. So they're designed to support a public purpose, not necessarily procure a good or service the agency use. It's really just all on how we're paying attention, right?
Very much so. So grants are meant to help an initiative. If you have an agenda and it aligns with the government, they will fund in a grant that work. And it's not as controlled as a government contract. And vice versa, the government contract is we have a need, immediate need, and we need you to supply the work or the product, dare say.
Right. And then, so as far as regulations, the next way they're different is contracts, as we know, are governed by the federal acquisition regulations. Acquisition.gov, the FAR is being overhauled. They're eliminating a lot of just fluff language. I was disappointed to see that the market research segment had been kind of stripped. So more to come on that. I'm sure we'll have a future episode on what that means as part of process. But for now, the FAR governs contracts. Grants, however, are more of uniform guidance provided by CFR 2 CFR 200. So we'll pull that up and I'll show you guys sort of what that looks like in a moment. And then you have OTAs, which are not governed by either of those two. You have them governed under 10 USC 4021, 4022, et cetera. That's more of a DoD authority. But let me go ahead and share my screen real quick so that you guys can see this and see what it looks like. And I forgot to set up my presentation. Bear with me a second. Screen sharing is easiest with 2 monitors. Yes, it is. Let's see which one I'm sharing. Here it is. All right. So we are on ecfr.gov. I know you can't see the URL, but this is where the Code of Federal Regulations lives. You probably have seen this before. If you are already in any set-aside programs, this is also Code of Federal Regulations also governs your socioeconomic certifications. But they call it grants are also federal financial assistance. So you will remember in sam.gov, right before you hit the submit button, Sam asked you if you wanted to be eligible for federal assistance. Most people say no to that because they don't realize that federal assistance is also grants. Grants are federal assistance. Federal assistance is grants. Same thing, different terminology. And that's governed by this, this page here. I'm not going to go through all this with you guys. But this is important for you to know and keep as a reference in case you do end up venturing into the grants world. Knowing where to find your regulations is imperative.
Very much so.
All right. Now, on application, as far as where you're going to find these, you're not typically going to find a grant on sam.gov. That's pretty much a given. You will find OTAs in the form of broad agency announcements on sam.gov. You'll find contracts on sam.gov. Grants, you're more so going to find on grants.gov. Now, Natasha, you might know other sources of grants. I know grants.gov is the federal source, but where are these state grants? Where can we find those?
I like grantwatch.com. That one has state, local, and sub-grants. And when I talk about sub-grants, I mean folks that have already won a grant and now want to take a piece of that grant and grant it to you and your business. So it's a trifecta of sorts. And I like to be able to see it all the way from the top to the bottom. So Grants Watch will look at federal, state, local, and sub.
That's pretty useful knowledge. So a sub-grant then could be synonymous then. It's like subcontracting on a grant.
Yeah.
For our audience sake. Okay. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it easy. Next segment is the process comparison. So other than where you're going to find these guys, because that looks a little bit different, let's also talk about actually doing the work as far as what's the process look like to propose, or in this case, apply to a grant. What are reviewers looking for? Compliance versus impact. What are you seeing out there?
In contracting, it's very, it's year round. We have our highs and our lows, but overall it's year round unless there's a shutdown. But other than that, it's year round. Grants, they have their time. So grants are very much January to May, June, and then funding is gone. They've spent all the money. Then you got to wait till the next year. So if you miss the train, you have to wait a whole year for it. Grants in regards to impact, I would agree. Grants, when you're writing, it's not really about compliance. I mean, they have some requirements like address your management approach, address, the impact that you intend to have on this, who's the key personnel, how much are you looking for, and justify the pricing, right? That just goes without saying. That's in any write-up for any sort of money that you're ever asking for. But what they really care about there, it's more emotional. It's not really technical writing. The government doesn't want your emotions. They just want the facts, right? They don't care how you feel. They just want the facts. How are you going to do it? Why are you going to do it? Why are you the best one for the job? End of story. Grants are like, what kind of lives are you trying to change? What kind of things are you doing? Affordable housing? Are you doing community development? Are you doing, transformation of healthcare? What are you doing? And what is the impact? Who do you have beside you? What ideas do you have? They want to hear more about your ideas, your solutions, what you're going to do with this money, how you're going to make an impact with the money that they provide you. So it's very different.
And that's what they care more about, impact, right? I mean, it's really less about you have to do all of this within this little box that we give you. I feel like there's more freedom involved in grants.
Oh,
but
yeah.
The impact, it's kind of up to you to reverse engineer the highest possible ROI into how you're going to do it. Whereas a contract, you're almost working backwards. You have to figure out how you're going to do it, and then how you're going to do it with all of their nuanced requirements. So,
and within budget.
Yeah. And don't make a mistake.
You said it correctly, I think. I think another difference to this is upon award. Contract versus grant management. Project management, grant management. Grant management is more, did you say, you said you were going to spend this money doing XYZ. Did you do XYZ or close enough? If not, why? If so, how? And prove it. And so managing the grants is really to say, you gave me this money to provide this impact. How's it going? Right? Not as much regulations as if you did a federal contract. It's more delivery based. It's more solutions based. So it's, did you perform XYZ at the timeline you set, the way you said, with the communication methods you said, and billable at what you said, and so on and so forth. That's a little more different. And that's almost like, I want to say, micromanaging, right? Grants, not
even the evaluation is different, though. In a grant situation, you're going to have more peer review panels and programmatic merit rather than your typical FAR source selection and lowest price technically acceptable factors. So if you eliminate all of that, the evaluation can be a lot more fair in a lot of industries.
Yeah, because honestly, they'll award you just based on the impact and the people. If you have a solid plan and the people around you to perform, like if you build yourself an ecosystem of people that can help you achieve that impact and they can see, and you've clearly laid it out, that, and of course the metrics, they're very big on the metrics, KPIs, you've done the homework. That is so much more impactful than in the government world. It's really about past performance and key personnel, but mostly about past performance. You could go for a grant for something you've never done before. And it's really idea-based. This is my idea. This is my dream. This is my goal. This is my want. This is my impact. And this is who I've surrounded myself with to help deliver it. And that right there is enough. So you don't have to worry so much about what I have to prove.
Yeah. And not to say that there's no compliance in grants, because I realized when I said earlier that, compliance versus impact, not to say that you're not going to have to be compliant, because it is still a taxpayer dollar. But grants are rarely, you're not going to get a negotiation, essentially, where like in GSA, you're going to go through negotiations. They're going to try to get your price down. That's not going to necessarily happen in a grants environment. So that negotiation is really more about acceptance, like accepting your solution. And then, are you in compliant? And did you do what you say you're going to do?
Right. And another key factor to this is grants will honestly tell you their budget. They know their budget. So it's not lowest price wins.
Right.
It is literally, it's whatever they want to, award it to, and they feel they have the best impact and plan for it. But you could go for a grant. I think we just went to see one for a consortium in like Wisconsin, and they literally said the amount for their grant. They were like, we're only willing to spend, $2 million a year. Keep it around that. That feels so much easier than just hoping for the best.
You get a very clear, defined answer. You know what you're going into. And if you can't do it in that amount, like it does make it a lot more transparent.
And you can speak to people when the grant's out.
Yes. Your reporting is also going to be, that's actually a good point. Let's sit on that for a moment before I move on. So that sort of cone of silence does not necessarily exist in a grants sort of evaluation criteria. That's very good information for the audience to know. And when it comes to reporting, so whereas contracts are more performance-based deliverables, did you get it on time and within budget, grants are more programmatic outcomes and reporting. So there is my con in the grant and cooperative agreements world. And if any of you guys out there are Apex Accelerators listening to me, I'm with you. I understand. The reporting is a nightmare. And oftentimes what they want reported, I mean, you quite literally, like, it's not going to be in the best format. It might not even be the KPIs that they should be focused on given what the ask is. However, they're going to dictate the reporting requirements. And it's very, very common for a grants contractor to essentially have to build a system for real-time reporting to accommodate each and every grant. So don't think that your same old system is going to work for the next grant. We're going to have to redo that. And by the way, we do so on Monday.com. Just shameless plug. But grants reporting is probably the heaviest. Like, all of the rest of it feels to me easier than contracting, other than the proposal, because you all know how I feel about proposals. But if I had to say one thing that didn't seem like it was easier than contracting, I would have to say the reporting. Would you agree or disagree with that?
No, I would absolutely agree. You don't have to do such heavy reporting when you win a contract. You get like monthly status reports.
Yeah.
What did I say I would do? Did I do it? Not. Right. Why was the delay? That's it. Grant management is literally a whole other skill set that most people, when they win a grant, they outsource. Shameless plug, we do that too. But grant management, yes, it's a whole thing. But I mean, you can win grants up to like 20, $1 million. What is the recent one? $1 billion.
That's a stupid amount of money. Like a ridiculous
money, amount of money. One client said it sounds like funny money, and I was
funny money. That's the terminology.
And I was like, I guess funny you're right.
Like
I was like, some monopoly money there, but it's true. So I think we segue our way into segment 3 finally.
Segment 3. Yeah, you're right. We're kind of already getting into that. Where's my banner? Hold on. There we go.
Get it. Why should you care? Because it's money, girl. It's money. Agencies are literally allocating more dollars in grants lately in regards to infrastructure, sustainability, transformation, innovation sectors. It is huge. And no one's read the big, beautiful bill, please take a look at it. It has a lot of those changes in there. We were recently, on a YouTube watching one of those transformations where every state's getting $1 billion for healthcare transformation in areas that are not easily accessible to the public. So you're limited in transportation, but you still need to go to clinics. You still need good healthcare. You're limited. Every state gets $1 billion, right? As a grant. And then companies are bidding on those grants. That's not the only one. There's like a ton more. So we're seeing all these grants come out, especially my favorite is community-based block grants.
That's
community. Oh, they're huge. So you can get up to $70 million to create a community, to develop it. We need stores. We need a Starbucks. We want to bring in traffic. We want to have, local stores and businesses succeed. We want affordable housing. All of those things are funded and then managed. And they'll pay for you to manage the affordable housing. They'll pay for you to develop these communities. It's really infrastructure. So it's pretty cool.
Not to mention, grants open doors, right? They open doors not only to partnerships, but to pilot programs that later end up becoming contracts if that pilot works. Yeah. So when we talk about getting in early in the acquisition cycle, like if that's not hitting the mother lode to literally develop the program that you're going to end up fulfilling through a contract, so all of these great ideas, you have a grant is a great way to bring it to the table, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But these pilot programs are often, when they don't have it all worked out yet, that's going to have to go in a grant. They don't know what they're asking for yet. They're just trying to solve a problem. Grant, because there's more flexibility there than in traditional FAR contracting. So
very well said. Yeah. And I think it breaks into that whole concept of like, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Very much so. Very much so. Let's talk about how the audience can position themselves.
Look at what's out there. I will be the first to admit that I thought of grants of like begging for money.
Because of the financial assistance, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was just like, please give me money. And maybe that says something about me, but I realized when I educated myself, when I looked at what grants were and the type of funding and money that there's in, and the type of work and impact that people are doing every day with that money, I was astounded. A lot of the change, sustainable infrastructure, support humanity, anything that we do to help others, the impact of it is amazing. And a lot of it came from grants. Yep. So when I learned about that, all of a sudden I was like, oh, well, you can get a grant everywhere. But I learned, I educated.
Grant for you.
Everyone gets a grant. But once you learn, it just becomes another tool. So it's not just contracts. We talk about commercial, we talk about federal, we talk about SLED. Well, now we can talk about grants. We can talk about SIBRs. There's a million things. And you're only better if you educate yourself about each and every one.
That's right. I'd also suggest, above and beyond education, partnering with nonprofits or universities. Some grants, and you'll have to look at the grant because that can depend situationally, are only open to nonprofits. Some include for-profit. So partnering also with some nonprofit entities, universities. I also would definitely recommend, and I'm surprised that you didn't bring this up yet, understanding indirect cost rates. There are what's called allowable and unallowable costs in the grant and cooperative agreement world. And
it's very much the same as in your government world, folks.
Yes, very much the same.
They won't pay for your alcohol bills, so you can hang out with your nonprofits, but don't drink with them. So just, like don't bill it to the government. So they do audit you, right? Because it's still taxpayer dollars. People forget that. They will audit you as part of the grant management, but it's also depending on the amount. Like if you get a $5,000 grant, you're going to get audited. Now, if you got like a couple millions, you really want to track your costs. You want to track where that money is going, how you're spending that grant. They want to see that. That you're not just saying, I want to grant $70 million and then you run away, I don't know. Where are you going to go? Portugal. And go spend, oddly specific, and go spend some money. I don't know, buy some properties, whatever you want to do. They need to be able to see and trace the money. So it is heavily audited, and that's part of the grant management portion of it. So have really good, nonprofit CPA or grant CPA that can support you and help you to manage that grant, because it's going to be very important. But yes, indirect rates are going to be huge.
All right. And finally, last but not least, our wrap up. So, practical takeaways, where to find grants. Definitely grants.gov. Natasha mentioned, what was it? Grantwatch.com.
Grantwatch.com. Yep.
And then let's spend a moment on how do we vet these opportunities? So how do we perform a go, no go analysis on a grant? What are we looking for?
Nonprofit or for-profit, because in many cases that matters.
Yeah.
Don't get confused. Sometimes there's grants that are specifically for certain agencies that are not necessarily for a business. There's sometimes they only want to give grants to a water agency, to a Department of Transportation, or to a local, county, and have them manage it. Sometimes that's a case. In many cases, they'll ask you to do 30 to 40% with a university alongside of you, or someone, or a nonprofit group like the Salvation Army or something, to ensure that you have mentorship, and that you have the validity and the ability to perform what you're saying you're going to perform. And so sometimes they ask for that reassurance. But honestly, most of the time that I'm looking at a grant, you have months and months of lead time to submit. You have honestly many minimal requirements. It's not as convoluted as government contracting. They don't even care what font you use. You can use as much pictures as you want. Like, I don't care.
Oh, you mean I can use Comic Sans?
Yeah, you use Comic Sans. You could do photos. Your photos could be whatever font you want.
Everybody hates that font.
Love you.
But I think it's important for everyone to know, like, this is part of a bigger, broader modernization strategy. Like, this administration, it's no big secret. They've been trying to reduce the red tape. And this just allows for a easier way to get things done and get needs met by using these untraditional methods. So if you are currently a contractor, maybe you're not and you wanted to be, maybe you have been stagnant, maybe your contracts have gotten cut, whatever the case, or maybe you're just a new small business, maybe you're a nonprofit, take a look at grants. They might open the door for a revenue stream that you haven't looked into before, that you maybe didn't know existed. There's grants for all types of things, all different, like go on grants.gov. It's so random.
All the way to foundations. Think about foundations. They're giving out grants to support you, educational grants, women-owned small business grants. Just for being a woman and owning a small business, you can get a grant. College education grants. There's grants to create affordable housing. There's grants to do all the things. You can literally do whatever you want. Oh, look at the puppy.
It's my dog. Sorry.
You see him in the house. Like,
all I saw was this big ear sticking. Look, there it is. Sorry.
I've seen grants, honestly, for everything. Education, support, basketball. Like, I'm always amazed at the type of grants that come out.
Yeah.
But anything that you can think of, it exists. You just have to find the right agency, showcase your impact and your idea, and you might get a grant and move forward with that.
That's right. And if you do happen to need a solution where you're tracking both your grants and your contracts and your compliance and your reporting, you know where to find us. We are here.
Yeah.
So I appreciate everybody for joining us today. I really look forward to your questions. This was a good, informative episode. You got a lot of resources that you can go and look up. The regulations that we mentioned earlier in the episode, feel free to pop those into Google and get familiar with how that all works. We'll be here to answer your questions, and I'm not sure what topic we are talking about next week. I'm not even going to put one out there because my schedule has been a mess lately, but we will see you same time next Thursday.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Happy Halloween. Yes. We'll have to change our backdrops next month.
Oh, to Christmas?
Yeah. Yeah. Can we not skip November though? We'll have to do something fallish maybe.
Fine, I'll have one leaf.
Never starts to play Christmas music first thing November 1st. I'm just not ready for that yet. 2 months of Christmas is a lot. It's a lot.
As soon as we come back from trick-or-treating. So my Christmas is gonna be there. Like
all the Halloween decorations are going back to storage and the gazillion
Mrs. Claus. I'm like, let's go.
Well, send pictures.
I will. Have a great
All right,
day,
everybody. Take care and have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.